Hey guys, Gary over at Stripwell. Just wanted to show you doing a side-by-side comparison again with Citristrip versus our QCS blend, our formula. One thing you'll notice right away is that with ours, it's crystal clear. You could see the wood or the finish that you're stripping. It's very clean. The Citristrip, you can't see. It's a paste, and it's very, or more of a gel. You can't really see what it's doing because of the color and the pigment of it. So we're going to test these side by side, just same amount of time, see how clean they come, just kind of observe the differences. So there is QCS, there is Citristrip. Alright guys, just back here with these drawers. This was Citristrip and this was QCS. Now I let these sit overnight. The Citristrip actually was activating pretty quickly yesterday. The QCS takes a little longer. This is a kind of a thick, hard lacquer, really heavily built lacquer, so it took a little longer. But I'm just gonna go and do a little scrape now and see what we've got going on underneath. So you can see that with Citristrip, you've got sort of this, it's effective, but it's a little messy. Stripping is generally a little messy. So there is Citristrip, and that can be cleaned up. Usually you would clean that up with acetone or mineral spirits. And then here is QCS. And again, this is coming off pretty easily as well. Just a lot less resin. Alright, so I've just taken a putty knife and cleaned off both surfaces, just making observations. Number one, soaking overnight. The wood on the Citristrip drawer looked like it has darkened. I don't know if that'll lighten up compared to this. There is still a haze on all of it. That's the paint. This finish has like a paint and then a clear coat. The clear coat is a very thick, hard lacquer, but then the residue underneath, the white, that comes off pretty easily. Now, if you are dead set on using something like Citristrip or another stripping chemical, QCS also works really great as the afterwash. So that's one nice thing is that when you use QCS, you can use it as an afterwash to clean up what you see here, but you could also use it to clean up Citristrip and other strippers at the end too, instead of using acetone or other chemicals that are flammable and have toxins in them. So you could use it as an afterwash, or you could use it as both the stripper and the afterwash. So for cleanup, I just use something like this. For the cleanup part of it, I would use a 4/0 steel wool. If you're really trying to force the finish off, you may want to go coarser, but this should be fine. So I'm going to dip it in a little QCS, and I've soaked both surfaces, both drawers with QCS, and I'm just going to go over them and release the remaining finish. I'll do this drawer first. This is the QCS drawer. So again, you can see I'm just going to go over it. Sorry if it's going in and out of focus. And I'm just going to scrub the drawer. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. Because pretty much the material has let go. You're just sort of cleaning it now. And what this does is this allows you to really give it a nice thorough cleaning. And then you just take your dry rag, your towel, and dry it off. So now that's really clean. I could even do a little bit more in that groove, but you get the idea. Alright, so I've now switched the drawers places. So that is now the QCS drawer, and this is the Citristrip drawer. I've wet this now that I've cleaned off most of the Citristrip. I've actually wet this with QCS, but you can see how clean that one came. It's in the grain. I mean, this was an originally factory painted piece, so you could spend a lot of time and try to get that out of the grain with a wire brush, but with almost any stripper that would be very difficult to get out. And now I'm going to do the same thing on this drawer here, using QCS as the afterwash, just in case you do love using Citristrip or other products. You can then eliminate your afterwash product, which is probably a solvent. You can at least eliminate that and use QCS to take care of that step if you do want to stick with your go-to stripper. So here we go. I'm going to just like the QCS drawer, I'm just going to scrub it. It's pretty much the color that you see on the drawer, the underneath color, that's just the paint they put on, whether it was pigmented finish or something. They put that on underneath the clear lacquer. So I'm just going to do this. It's hard to do with one hand, so excuse me if it's I'm bouncing around a little bit, but just want to show you this works great as an after wash for other products as well. So even if you need something that works a little quicker than QCS, if that's something that concerns you, is timing on certain finishes, you could use a different stripper in those cases and then just use QCS as the after wash. Alright, so these are the two drawers. This is QCS, this is Citristrip. Citristrip worked faster, but I left them both overnight, and then today they both came off exactly the same way. So it's a matter of time letting QCS work. This was a very thick lacquer, so it took extra time. But the only thing I want to point out is the discoloration versus this. This is really a natural mahogany look, and this is obviously darkened. There's light spots because we left it on just heavy all night. We didn't do anything to try to create that look. That's just what happens with chemicals sometimes on woods. It just sort of chemically discolors them. Now that might dry and lighten up a bit, or with sanding it might lighten up a bit, but you can see how gentle QCS is on the wood and how nice and clean it does, and really preserves that color across the board. I mentioned the paint in the grain. You can see that here, and a lot of times on grains or on woods that have been painted directly onto the wood or primer directly onto the wood, you'll get that in the grain, and it's very hard to get off. The nice thing about QCS, and I'm going to show you just on this one drawer, is that you can actually spot treat it if you want to take the time. So this is some QCS I'm just spraying on there, and you can take a brass brush, soft bristle, and you can go in here and actually just give it a light scrub. And what that's going to do is get into the grain. Now this might take a while, and so sometimes it may not be worth it depending on the piece, but if you do that, it gets it pretty much out of the grain. It's hard to see in the camera, but it's pretty much gone in the area that I did. So that's one way you can kind of do a final cleanup if you want. I'll show you again. So this area right here, I'm going to focus in this area. You can see the white. I'm going to take some QCS. I'm just going to wet that area. What's nice about QCS is you can see what you're doing. I'm going to take my brass bristle brush, and I'm just going to go with the grain. And I'm just going to go in here and scrub in the grain. Now QCS will help to lift the white out of the grain. This works really good on like teak, on walnut, on mahoganies, because sometimes people paint on the wood, especially on Scandinavian furniture where there's just a light oil finish and not a lot of protectant. So it really gets into the grain. So I'm just going to do that area, wipe it clean. And you can see there versus there. So you see the white in the grain and none. Alright guys, just one last look at these two drawers. So this drawer, QCS, this drawer, Citristrip. You could tell they're from the same dresser. They were both painted white and then lacquered from the factory in the 50s. Let them sit overnight. Citristrip worked faster. It started to work yesterday before we let it sit overnight. Left it on really wet, so it just sort of, it didn't dry, it just stayed very wet. QCS stayed wet overnight. Today came in, they both cleaned off, pretty much exactly the same. And then I just kind of showed how getting the white out of the grain, you could see on the QCS drawer, even in that groove, came out really nice. You know, the big difference is the discoloration, and also just the ingredients. If you look up the SDS on Citristrip versus what's in our formula, this is much safer than this. But again, there's just a side-by-side comparison of the two, because I know a lot of you use Citristrip.